大家好，我是 Martin, and this is Short Stories brought to you by the Taichung Keda Language Center. Today's story is Don Quixote. That's pronounced Quixote because it is Spanish, not English. Don Quixote is a famous work of literature from Spain, written by Miguel de Cervantes. It was first published in 1605, so it's quite old and also quite famous, as I mentioned. It's about an old man who kind of goes a little bit crazy and thinks he is a knight, and he goes on many wacky adventures with his partner Sancho. Well, before I begin today's story, I'm going to first introduce some vocabulary and some vocabulary example sentences. Then, after that, we will do some reading comprehension questions. Are you ready? Good. Let's do the vocabulary. Vocabulary. Occupy. Occupy. Fernando loves science. His mind is always occupied with his next experiment. Knight. Knight. The knight grabbed his heavy sword and rode off into the distance. Rescue. Rescue. The kitten was stuck in the tree and meowing to be rescued. Vivid. Vivid. The poet creates vivid scenes with his words. Incredible. Incredible. The incredible superhero saved the children from the explosion. Rename. Rename. I want to rename myself Queen Emily. Maybe the new name would come with the new royal job. Maybe call yourself Queen. Maybe people will start to treat you like a queen. Just ask Queen Latifah. Promise. Promise. I promised not to tell anyone Yvonne's secret, but I lied. Solid. Solid. The layers of solid rock made beautiful colors in the Grand Canyon. Remove. Remove. I wish I could remove spiders from the earth. Firm. Firm. The president was firm in his view that men and women should have equal rights and equal pay. Assure. Assure. Raquel assured her daughter that she could get a hamster for her birthday. Tear. Tear. The struggling actor tore his script in half when he realized he didn't get the part he wanted. Threat. Threat. The warlike country is a threat to its neighbors. Prove. Prove. The new drug proved to be very successful in curing the disease. Command. Command. Joanna gave the command to her dog to sit, but instead it chewed up her shoe. That's a bad dog. Attempt. Attempt. In an attempt to throw my best friend a surprise party, I planned for a whole month. Journey. Journey. Chemise trained very hard in her journey to becoming a professional dancer. Okay, that's it for vocabulary. Now we shall read the story. In central Spain, Alonso Quijano lives a quiet life in the village of La Mancha. He retired several years ago and lives as a gentleman and property owner. With no duties to occupy his time, he takes up the hobby of reading novels. He spends his time lost in stories of brave knights who charge into castles and rescue princesses. In time, however, Quijano's imagination overwhelms his senses. The Spanish gentleman completely believes the stories he's read. His world is vivid, filled with dragons and incredible heroes. He longs to be a hero as well, fighting for justice throughout the kingdom. Though he's nearly 50, he renames himself Don Quixote and reinvents himself as a proud knight who fights for truth and destroys the wicked. Quixote leaves his home with a new name, armor, and an old donkey as his royal ride. His first quest is to seek out a lady to become his love. He thinks that a knight without a lady is like a tree without leaves. Quixote remembers a local farm girl and imagines her as a princess. In his mind, she becomes Dulcinea del Toboso, his lady love. The world needs Don Quixote's bravery just as much as a knight needs a squire. Or, at least that's what Don Quixote thinks. He recruits the help of a simple farmer named Sancho, promising Sancho an island in return for his service. The two ride across the countryside with dreams in their heads. Don Quixote and Sancho come to a field of 30 windmills, solid and silent on the plains. Don Quixote doesn't see them as windmills, however, but as terrible giants. He tells Sancho that he will slay the beasts, removing such terrible creatures from the face of the earth. Sancho tries to stop Don Quixote, yet the heroic stories the old man read are reflected on what he sees. He charges at the imaginary enemy at full speed. Don Quixote's lance gets caught in the windmill's circling arms, throwing him to the ground. Even though he's surprised, Don Quixote stays firm in his world view. He assures Sancho that an enemy magician turned the giants into windmills at the last minute. He tears a branch from a tree to replace the lance that broke on the windmill and continues on. Don Quixote and Sancho arrive in Barcelona after many adventures. Though Don Quixote always intended to act heroically, at times he has been more of an outlaw than a savior. He often hurt innocent citizens whenever he saw them as a threat. Barcelona proves to be Don Quixote's last stop, however. The Knight of the White Moon, actually an old friend in disguise, defeats Don Quixote in battle. Conquered, Don Quixote listens to the commands of the champion knight. In an attempt to cure Don Quixote's madness, the Knight of the White Moon tells Don Quixote that he must not battle or act as a knight for 1 year. Don Quixote returns to his village and plans to retire as a shepherd. Before he gets the chance to, he falls sick with a deadly illness. Later, Don Quixote awakes from a dream and finally sees himself as his true self, Quijano. he breaks away from his heroic journey of being a knight and apologizes for the harm he has caused. Before his death, Quijano's niece learns that she will be disinherited if she marries a man who reads books of chivalry. Okay, so that was the story. It's famous for a good reason, not just because it's a little bit funny, but also it teaches us a little bit of a lesson about not letting your imagination get the best of you. And it actually has inspired some phrases and idioms in English, and also words like the word quixotic, which is pronounced quixotic and not like Quixote. Quixotic is an adjective that means too idealistic or unrealistic, something like that. It also, the image of attacking the windmills, that is a well-known image or phrase in English. If you tell someone not to go charging at windmills, you're telling them that they are basically chasing after something that isn't really there. So that's a little bit about it. Also, you learned a little bit about chivalry. Chivalry is an important word for this story. Chivalry is the code of ethics, or the rules that knights had to follow. And the rules were things like you always protect a lady, and you always fight the other knight honorably, and also you can kill any peasant you want. So those were kind of the rules that knights had to follow. Okay, now let's talk about the reading comprehension questions. I will read 4 questions. You do your best to answer them. Here we go. Question number 1. Why did Don Quixote become a knight? A. His father was a knight. B. He read too many novels about chivalry. C. Sancho suggested it. D. He watched Game of Thrones. Okay. The answer is, of course, B. He read too many novels about chivalry. Remember chivalry? Chivalry is the rules about knights. He kept reading about chivalry and thought it was romantic and interesting. Question 2. Who does Don Quixote hire as his squire? A. Dulcinea del Toboso. B. Alonso Quijano. C. Sancho Panza. D. The Knight of the White Moon. The answer is C. Sancho Panza. I know it doesn't say his last name, but that is his last name, Panza. Sancho, his loyal friend. Question 3. Why did Don Quixote attack the windmill? A. He thought it was a terrible giant. B. The windmill attacked his horse. C. His lady love was trapped inside. D. There was a thief inside. The answer is, of course, A. He thought it was a terrible giant, so he wanted to attack it. Question 4. What happened in Barcelona? A. Don Quixote and Sancho had an argument. B. Don Quixote married his lady love. C. Don Quixote was defeated by the Knight of the White Moon. D. Don Quixote and Sancho go sightseeing and eat tapas. The answer is C. He was defeated by the Knight of the White Moon, who was actually his friend in disguise, and they did that to help him recover from his madness. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I hope you don't go chasing after windmills in the future. All right, have a good day. Bye-bye.